Hello, hello, hello. This is Carl A. Smith for the Word Weekly Stock Market Analysis for August the 11th, 2019. What a turbulent week that started off on Monday with all four of your major indexes having their worst one-day percentage drop in all of 2019. All of this based upon renewed trade fears. However, all of the indices did manage to hold on to some small gains toward the latter part of the week as bargain hunters stepped in to pick up some beaten down stocks. All of our U.S. futures slipped on Friday as Wall Street roared back to its record biggest one-day rise in 2 months based upon renewed conversations around potentially coming to some resolution around China tariffs, as well as China coming to some stabilization with their currency. However, going into this week, there are some heightened awareness around potential for increased volatility as things continue to unfold with our China conversations. As with always, we'll jump right in. However, we do want to issue a little bit of a caution coming off of this very bullish week of volatility and starting off the week last week with a huge sell-off. We are cautious that the market still is bullish, as we'll talk about in just a moment. However, we may move in a sideways fashion for most of our indices until we see a little bit more clarity on what we're doing with China overall. So as with everything, we'll start off with the S&P 500. As we begin in the beginning of the week, as we stated earlier, the S&P dropped very significantly as renewed tensions have begun to escalate around China and the U.S. in regards to a trade war. However, we did anticipate some of this moving forward just based upon some of the technical analysis that we've seen over the last few weeks. As we can see here, we did communicate over the last few videos that there is some potential for weakness and a continuation. The week of July the 29th, I believe, we did see a pullback into value come very close to our point of control. If we zoom in just a little bit here, we will see that we just missed our point of control in this area here, and a nice reversal back up outside of value to touch value area high this past week, and a clear rejection of that, which did initiate some additional selling. So there is a combination of both the macroeconomic news that we've been consistently speaking about, as well as some technical patterns. Obviously, we are technical investors and we do follow that more so than news, but we just wanted to illustrate a little bit of a possibility of a continuation in a downward fashion, just basically upon technical analysis. However, all of that did get reversed as we closed out the latter part of the week, as the S&P 500 did hit its 50-period moving average, and then a clear visual reference of reversal right back upward, back into range. But if we do zoom in again, we do see almost a perfect touch of our value area and a rejection back outward. So we do see some kind of push-pull, but if we look at it from a bullish perspective, this is a bullish buy signal coming into this week, as we did close be above our 20-period moving average, which you see here in green, but at the same time, we still are within value. So there are some opportunities, and we will be looking to continue our bullish push throughout the front side of next week. And we'll move on to our NASDAQ, which did see majority of our tech sector being hit pretty aggressively with the notion of tariffs. The NASDAQ did see a major sell-off beginning of the week, just as we have seen across the board, but bulls did step in Wednesday with a trend line touched, which we'll highlight here for you. A very visual reference again, and a clear reversal back up above the point of control. And we did have a weekly close bullish, very similarly to the S&P, and we're targeting an area of $190 mark will be a key test area for a potential break upward above and back to test this longer term trend line that we have here that has consistently held pretty well over the last month or so. So tariffs have impacted this overall index just that much more. Apple, Intel, AMD, all of your tech heavy stocks do sit within the NASDAQ, and this is giving a potential opportunity for losses from an earnings perspective, thinking longer term, if the tariff situation is not resolved. We still are bullish, as we have seen a bullish close on the weekly as we continue to look upward. However, there will be a clear touch of this value area, high area at roughly 190, and that will be a key area for us to watch. And if there's a potential break upward, if there is a potential break upward, we will move back into 195 area and potentially moving upward to, again, all-time highs. If there is a failure on the NASDAQ, we do see a movement back down to potentially test the trend line again with a little bit of a double bottom potentially. Now, if we do break below this, the next area for us to consider would be down in the 170 area as a potential for some type of support. But we'll watch that pretty heavily. Again, we are still bullish both on the S&P and on the NASDAQ going into next week. And we'll move on to our Russell. The Russell saw a relatively small movement in regards to overall price within this past week, with only a small range of roughly about 6.5 points in comparison to roughly 9 points on the S&P that we did see a huge range on. But we do see some opportunities for us to take a look at, well, which direction do we anticipate the Russell to move forward in. We relatively closed close to our opening price, so that shows a little bit of indecision this last week, coming off of this very bearish week previously. And we also did see that the Russell did not get above its 100-week moving average, and this is an opportunity for us to look at that as potential resistance for a potential roll right back over and retest value area low. As with always, we look to try to determine, well, what would be the strength of a particular move if there is an opportunity for some type of support roughly around that 145 level. And this distance between these weeks and this week's is enough to provide some type of strength. So we do anticipate a small reversal or sideways movement for the Russell over the next week, with an opportunity to look for a rebuy and potentially moving forward. So we do anticipate Russell coming back down to test these lows and make a determination if we do have some longer term support at the 145 level to continue with a bullish move upward. So we'll watch the Russell moving ahead into the upcoming week. We do not have positions in the Russell at this time, but we are looking for an opportunity to step right in. And we'll close out this week's video. We're going to try to keep us a little bit short this week. Obviously, a lot of movement and a lot of preparation for this upcoming week. And we do see within the Dow pretty heavily aggressively selling as well, with a pretty large range of about 10 points this past week. And again, we did see a nice reversal toward the middle of the week and closing out on Friday as well. But we do see some longer term resistance, roughly about the 263 level, that was not breached. And it also coincides with our 20-period moving average. Looking at that as a resistance, we do have a hypothesis that we will kind of continue in a horizontal fashion, if not to down, over this next week, with a potential retest of this longer-term trend line to continue to see if the bulls can maintain control. Now, all of this could change very dramatically based upon any macroeconomic news that comes out of China, out of the EU, as they continue to look for some stability and direction around Brexit, as well as coming out of the U.S. White House moving forward. This is a pretty interesting pattern that we do see. We have seen some pretty consistent support going back roughly into the early part, the latter part of last year. We have seen some pretty aggressive resistance that has been seen at that 263, 265 level, right where we've exactly closed. So the key will be for us, can this break through this line and continue up? Now, if we do see upward momentum, we will see a touch of the value area high, which is roughly 266, 267 area, and a potential of moving up higher into all-time highs. So again, our classic pattern is a bullish move, a retracement, and then a longer-term move. Now, there are multiple levels ahead of time that will need to be breached to continue this moving forward. As with that, we'll close out this week. Like I said, we want to keep everything a little bit short. Keep your eye on your risk over the next week. There is a lot of macroeconomic news that could impact the direction of the overall market. So please leverage the technical analysis that you know. If you're not familiar with technical analysis, please click on the link below to our Facebook page, as well as reach out to us through email. Our whole goal is to ensure that it's your money and it should be under your control. But in doing that, you need to acquire the appropriate knowledge. So don't hesitate to reach out. And this week, I will talk to you soon. Take care.